Princess Daisy, Chapter 1. We could always shoot this on top of the RCA building, Daisy said, walking past the parapet above which rose a high metal railing designed to forestall would-be suicides. They're not nearly as paranoid as the Empire State Building people. She gestured scornfully at the ledge behind her. But Mr. Jones, it's not the view from precisely here. The message just won't be New York. The man in uniform watched motionless in surprise as Daisy suddenly leapt high and held on to a rung of the railing with one strong hand. With her other hand she took off the sailor hat under which she had tucked her hair and let it blow free. The silver gilt tumble was caught by the breeze that separated it into a million brave and dazzling threads. "Come down, miss," the man in charge of the observation deck begged. "I told you it's just not allowed. Look, I'm trying to show you what we're after." Daisy persisted. "It's hairspray commercial." And artistically, what's a hairspray commercial without wind blowing in the hair? Can you tell me that? Just hanks of hair, all clunky and boring, wind inessential, Mr. Jones. The uniformed official looked up at Daisy with perplexed admiration and dismay. He didn't understand anything about her. She was young and more beautiful than anyone he'd ever seen, but she wore a man's moldy baseball jacket which bore the now mournful legend Brooklyn Dodgers on its back, a pair of United States Navy sailor pants, and dirty tennis shoes. He was far from a romantic man, but everything about her stung his imagination with an unaccustomed fascination. He found himself curiously unable to look away from her. She was as tall an unaccustomed fascination. He found himself curiously unable to look away from her. She was as tall as he, at least 5 feet 7 inches, and something about the way she walked and suggested the balance of the trained athlete. Even before she jumped, she had jumped up to the perch from which balance of the trained athlete, even before she had jumped up to the perch, which she now gestured, interpreted high-hearted, as if she were trying to catch a beam of the sun itself. The roof supervisor was aware of a particular clarity and cadence in her speech that made him think that perhaps she was an American. Yet who but an American would dress like that? When she'd first appeared, all she'd asked was for permission to film a commercial on his roof, and now she was hanging up there like a GD angel on a Christmas tree. Thank heaven the place was closed for the day. "You can't go up there. You didn't tell me you wanted to the last time you came. He reproached her, circling cautiously closer. It's never permitted. It could be dangerous, but all great art has to break rules. Daisy called down to him gaily, remembering that when she had first checked out this location a week ago, 2 $20 bills had ensured Mr. Jones' cooperation. She has many more 20s in her pocket. Several years as a producer of commercials had taught her to travel strictly on folding money. Daisy scrambled a little higher and took a deep breath. It was a fresh, glinting spray day in 1975, and the wind had blown all the soot away from the city. The rivers that circled the island were as blue and as lively as the ocean itself, and Central Park was a great oriental rug flung at the feet of the gray apartment buildings of Fifth Avenue. She smiled down at the worried man looking up at her. Listen, Mr. Jones, I know all 3 models we're going to use. One of them lives on a raw veggies, and he is working on her black belt in karate. The second had just been signed for her first movie, and the third is an EST trainer who's engaged to marry a man with oil wells. Now with 3 wholesome American girls like that have any intention of jumping, we're going to build a strong, absolutely safe platform for them to stand on. I guarantee it personally, a platform you never said. Daisy jumped down and stood close to him, her dark eyes not quite black, but the color of the innermost heart of a giant purple pansy, caught the late afternoon light and held it fast as she deftly pressed 2 folded bills into his hand. Mr. Jones, I'm sorry if I alarmed you. Honestly, it's safe as houses up there. You ought to try it. I just don't know, miss. Come on, Daisy cajoled him. Didn't you promise me you'd be all ready for us on Monday? Didn't you promise me a special freight elevator open for business at 6 a.m., but you never said anything about going above the roof level? He grumbled. Roof level? Daisy and said indignantly, if all we wanted was a simple high view, there must be a dozen buildings to this city we could use, but we want yours, Mr. Jones, no one else's. The storyboard for the commercial had specifically stated the Empire State Building. Leave it to the Reverend to complicate her life. As Daisy reached into her reserve pocket for an additional 20, she remembered that 3 years before, when she had started working on a production assistant, she heard first seen a taxicab driver cheerfully accept $40 to turn off his meter to allow his taxi to be used for 6 hours in the background of a street scene. But that's bribing people. Daisy had objected. Think of it as rent. If you want to stay in the business, she'd been worried, and she'd taken the advice now as an experienced producer of many of the best commercials ever filmed. If you like commercials, Daisy was hardened to the objection of civilians, and if Mr. Jones was more difficult than many, he was easier than some. Her next gambit was the one that usually clinched matters. Oh, I forget to tell you, she said, coming closer to him. The director wanted to know if you'd be in the commercial, standing there in the background like the keeper of the keys of the kingdom. We only pay Screen Actors Guild minimum, so you don't have to do it. If you don't want to, we could hire an actor to play you, but it wouldn't be nearly as authentic. Well, and of course you'd have to have makeup, she said, playing her best card. Oh, I guess it'll be alright. Yeah, without wind in the hair. Why would you need hairspray? I see your point. Makeup, huh? And I would have to wear a costume. Your uniform will be perfect just as it is. Goodbye. Mr. Jones, I'll see you first thing Monday morning. Daisy cheerfully at him as she walked toward the covered center care of the building. As she waited for the elevator to reach the 86th floor, the blonde girl in the basement in the baseball jacket, born Princess Marguerite Alexandra Valinsky, reflected that it was truly fortunate that there was one thing you could count on in this world every day, wanted to be in showbiz. Mr. Jones was only one in a long line of men who had been fascinated by something in Daisy Valinsky. Among the first of them had been the famed photographer Felipe Hausman, the man who would take more life over photographs than any other in the history of the magazine. In the last summer of 1952, he had been assigned to take Daisy's first official photographs for a Life cover. Since absolutely everyone, or as it seemed to the editors of the magazine, wanted to know what the child of the Prince Stash Valinsky and Francesca Vernon looked like. The sudden marriage of the great war hero and incomparable polo player to the matchless romantic American movie star had intrigued the world and inspired rumors which were only expanded and exaggerated by the seclusion in which Prince and Princess Valinsky had lived with their first child since her birth in April. Now in August, Francesca Vernon Valinsky sat in a field of long grass in a Swiss meadow with Daisy in her arms. Halsman found the actress faintly pensive, even remote, although she had photographed her twice before.